I never thought a piece of canvas could break a family apart. But then again, I never thought my own son would look me in the eye and call something I cherished worthless. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? Christmas morning started normal enough. The apartment smelled like Marie's cinnamon rolls, and the tree lights cast warm shadows across our small living room. Colin and Hannah arrived 40 minutes late, which wasn't unusual. My son had gotten comfortable with keeping people waiting. "Sorry, Dad," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Traffic was insane." It was 8 in the morning. There was no traffic. I let it go. I'd been letting things go for 32 years. We exchanged the usual gifts, sweaters, gift cards, kitchen gadgets. Marie handed Colin an envelope with $200 inside. He pocketed it without counting, without thanking her. Hannah at least smiled and said something polite about putting it toward their vacation fund. Then came my turn. I'd wrapped the painting carefully in brown paper, tied it with twine. My hands shook a little as I passed it across the coffee table. This wasn't just any gift. This was the landscape my grandparents had kept above their fireplace for 50 years. Rolling hills under a stormy sky, painted in oils that seemed to shift in the light. As a kid, I'd stare at it for hours, convinced the clouds were actually moving. When my grandmother passed last year, she'd left it to me specifically. "Harold always loved this one," she'd written in her will. I did love it, but I loved my son more, and I thought maybe he'd appreciate having something from his great-grandparents. Something with history, something real. Colin tore off the paper with the enthusiasm of a man opening junk mail. He looked at the painting, his nose wrinkled. "Seriously, Dad?" My chest tightened. "It's from your great-grandparents. Been in the family since... It's trash." The word hung in the air like smoke. Marie's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. "Colin," Hannah whispered, her cheeks flushing pink. But she didn't say anything else. She never did. My son leaned back on the couch, shaking his head with this smirk that made my stomach turn. "I mean, what were you thinking? Where am I supposed to put this? It doesn't match anything in our house. It's just... old." "It's an antique," I managed to say, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my ribs. "It's outdated." He stood up, leaving the painting propped against the couch like garbage waiting for pickup. "Look, thanks for the thought and everything, but maybe next time just stick with the gift card, yeah?" He laughed. Actually laughed. Hannah gathered their things quickly after that, mumbling something about needing to visit her parents. She gave me an apologetic smile on her way out, the kind that says, "I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do anything about it." The door closed. Marie and I sat in silence. "You okay?" she finally asked. I stared at the painting, still propped against our couch, still beautiful despite my son's words. "Yeah," I lied. That night, after Marie went to bed, I couldn't stop thinking about Colin's face, the casual cruelty in his eyes, the way he'd dismissed 50 years of family history like it was a garage sale reject. I'd raised him to be better than this. Or had I? Maybe I'd raised him to expect everything and appreciate nothing. Every time he'd called asking for money to cover rent, I'd sent it. Every time he'd needed help with a car payment, I'd helped. When he and Hannah wanted to upgrade to a bigger apartment, I'd co-signed the lease even though my gut told me it was a mistake. I'd spent 3 decades being a safety net, and he'd learned to fall on purpose. My phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark. I picked it up, opened the browser, and typed, "How to identify valuable paintings." The search results loaded. I clicked on the first link, then another, falling down a rabbit hole of auction houses and art databases. Most of it was over my head, terms like provenance and impasto and chiaroscuro that might as well have been a foreign language. But then I found a database of known artists. I started searching by style, by period, by the signature barely visible in the bottom right corner of my grandmother's painting. My heart stopped when I found it. The artist was listed. Minor name, but documented. Several pieces sold at auction over the past decade. Price range, $70,000 to $120,000. I read it 3 times, then 4. Then I got up and walked to the kitchen and came back and read it again. The painting Colin had called trash was worth more than I made in 2 years. I sat there in the dark living room, my phone's glow the only light, and something shifted inside me. Not anger, exactly. Something colder, something permanent. For the first time in my life, I saw my son clearly, not through the forgiving lens of fatherhood, not through the hope that he'd grow out of his selfishness. I saw him for what he was, a man who valued me only for what I could provide. And if he thought the painting was worthless, then he thought I was worthless too. The realization didn't hurt as much as I expected. Instead, it felt like waking up. I saved the webpage. Tomorrow, I'd make some calls. The New York auction house sent a representative named Gregory Chen. No, that's not right. Gregory Mitchell. He showed up at my apartment 3 days later wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, carrying a leather briefcase that screamed money. Mr. Whitmore? He shook my hand with the careful grip of someone who handled fragile things for a living. Thank you for reaching out. May I see the piece? I'd propped the painting against the wall in our spare bedroom, away from direct sunlight like the internet articles had suggested. Marie stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching everything. Gregory approached the painting slowly, reverently. He pulled out a small flashlight and examined the surface, the edges, the signature. He took photos from different angles. The whole process took 20 minutes. When he finally turned around, his expression was carefully neutral. Mr. Whitmore, do you have any documentation for this piece? Anything showing how your family acquired it? My grandmother's will, I said, and some old photos from their house showing it on the wall. That's about it? He nodded. That'll help with provenance. Mr. Whitmore, I believe what you have here is an authentic landscape by Thomas Blackwell, painted around 1910. Blackwell isn't a household name, but he has a dedicated following among collectors. His work rarely comes to market. And that means? That means, Gregory said, allowing himself a small smile, that we should be able to get you somewhere between $80,000 and $120,000 at auction. Possibly more if two determined buyers start bidding against each other. Marie grabbed my arm. Oh my God! I couldn't speak. The number was too big, too unreal. We can schedule it for our next major auction, Gregory continued, pulling papers from his briefcase. 2 weeks from now. We'll handle transportation, insurance, catalog photography, everything. Our commission is 15% of the final sale price, which is standard. Does that work for you? I signed the papers in a daze. After Gregory left, Marie pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Do you understand what this means? She whispered into my shoulder. This could change everything. We could finally fix the car, maybe take that trip to see your sister. I understood what it meant, but I also understood something else. We're not telling Colin, I said. She pulled back, studying my face. Harold, he called it trash, Marie. He laughed at me. I know, but no. The word came out harder than I intended. He made his choice. He doesn't get to change his mind now that there's money involved. Marie was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, we don't tell him. The 2 weeks before the auction crawled by like years. I worked my shifts at the apartment building, fixing leaky faucets and replacing light fixtures, but my mind was somewhere else. Every night I'd check the auction house website, looking at my painting in the online catalog. Lot 247, Thomas Blackwell. Landscape with storm clouds. Oil on canvas, circa 1910. Estimate, $75,000 to $125,000. I showed the listing to exactly 2 people, Marie and my old friend Dennis from the building. Dennis whistled low and said, That son of yours is going to lose his mind. He's not going to find out, I said. Dennis raised an eyebrow but didn't push it. The auction was on a Thursday afternoon. I took the day off work, told my supervisor I had a medical appointment. Marie and I took the train into Manhattan, dressed in our best clothes, which weren't fancy, but they were clean and pressed. The auction house was intimidating. All marble floors and high ceilings, people in expensive suits moving through the space like they owned it. We found seats in the back of the auction room, and I felt like an imposter. Lot 245, the auctioneer announced, his voice crisp and authoritative. My hands were sweating. Marie held one of them, her grip almost painful. Lot 246. My heart was hammering so hard I thought people around us could hear it. Lot 247. Thomas Blackwell, landscape with storm clouds. We'll open the bidding at $50,000. A paddle raised somewhere in the middle of the room. 50,000, thank you. Do I hear 55? Another paddle. 55,000. 60? The bids came faster now, jumping in $5,000 increments. 60 became 65, became 70. I stopped breathing somewhere around 80,000. 90,000, the auctioneer called. Do I hear 95? A pause. My stomach dropped. Then a paddle in the front row. 95,000. 100? The middle paddle again. $100,000. Do I hear 105? Silence. The auctioneer scanned the room. Fair warning at $100,000. More silence. Last call. His gavel came down with a crack that echoed through my chest. Sold for $100,000. I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Marie was crying. her head on my shoulder, and I realized I was crying too. $100,000. From the painting my son had called trash. We stayed for the paperwork afterward, signed forms, and gave them my bank information for the wire transfer. After the 15% commission, I'd walk away with $85,000, more money than I'd ever seen in one place. On the train ride home, I couldn't stop smiling. "What are you thinking?" Marie asked. "I'm thinking," I said slowly, "that maybe I've been looking at things wrong for a long time." She squeezed my hand. "He's going to find out eventually." "I know." And I did know. Colin would hear about it somehow, maybe through Hannah's family, maybe through social media, maybe just through the universe's tendency to make secrets impossible to keep. But for now, the money was mine. The victory was mine. And for the first time in 32 years, I wasn't going to apologize for it. The call came 5 days later, just after 10 at night. I was watching the news with Marie when my phone lit up with Colin's name. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello? You sold my painting?" His voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Marie looked up sharply from her magazine. "I sold my painting," I corrected him, keeping my voice level. "The one you called trash." "That's not—" He made a strangled sound. "Do you have any idea what that was worth?" $100,000, I said calmly. "Give or take." Silence. Then, "You're joking." "Nope. Auction house in Manhattan, sold last Thursday. The money hit my account yesterday." I could hear him breathing hard on the other end. Then came the sound of something crashing, probably a glass or a plate. Hannah's voice in the background alarmed. "Colin, what—" "You had no right," he said, his voice shaking. "That was family property. That belonged to all of us." "Grandmother left it to me," I said. "Specifically to me. It says so in her will. I can send you a copy if you'd like to refresh your memory." "You selfish—" He caught himself. "Dad, look, I know I maybe didn't react well on Christmas. I was having a bad day, okay? But you can't just— Can't just what? Keep what's mine. We need that money." The pretense of calm shattered. "Do you know what our rent is? Do you know how much pressure I'm under at work? Hannah and I have been talking about starting a family, and we need—" "You need money," I finished. Like always. "That's not fair." "You want to talk about fair, Colin? Let's talk about fair. How many times have I co-signed loans for you? How many times have I covered your rent when you came up short? How many times have I sent you cash because you needed to fix your car or pay off a credit card or handle some emergency that somehow only I could solve?" He didn't answer. "And you know what I got in return? I got a son who shows up late to Christmas, who takes money without saying thank you, who looks at a gift from his father and calls it trash." I said I was sorry. "No, you didn't. Not once." Another crash on his end. Hannah was definitely yelling now, though I couldn't make out the words. "This isn't over," Colin said, his voice dropping to something cold and dark that I barely recognized. "You think you can just cut me off? I'm your son. You owe me." "I don't owe you anything," I said, and hung up. My hands were shaking. Marie moved closer, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "That was hard," she said softly. "That was necessary." The next day, Colin showed up at my apartment building. I was replacing a broken lock on a storage unit when Dennis found me, looking nervous. "Your son's in the lobby," he said. "And Harold? He looks angry." I finished tightening the last screw before heading upstairs. Colin was pacing near the mailboxes, still in his work clothes, expensive button-down shirt and slacks that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. "We need to talk," he said when he saw me. "I'm working." "This is more important." He glanced around at the lobby, at Dennis watching from the front desk, and lowered his voice. "Can we go somewhere private?" Against my better judgment, I led him to my apartment. Marie was out grocery shopping, which was probably for the best. Colin didn't wait for an invitation to sit. He dropped onto our couch like he owned it, running his hands through his hair. "Look," he started, and I could see him visibly trying to control his temper. "I've been thinking about this, and there's a fair solution. You split the money with me, 50-50. That way?" "No." He blinked. "You didn't let me finish." "I don't need to. The answer is no. Dad, be reasonable. That painting was family property. It should be divided among family." "It was specifically left to me," I said again. "And you rejected it. You literally called it trash and told me to stick with gift cards next time." "I made a mistake." His voice rose. "People make mistakes. You're really going to punish me forever because I had a bad reaction to one gift?" "This isn't punishment, Colin. This is just me finally learning to say no." He stood up. his face flushing red. "You're doing this to hurt me." "I'm doing this to stop hurting myself." "That doesn't even make sense." "It makes perfect sense." I stayed seated, staying calm, which seemed to make him angrier. "For 32 years, I've given you everything you asked for. And for 32 years, you've taken it like it was owed to you. You've never been grateful. You've never even been polite. You show up late, you take money without thanking me, and you treat your mother and me like we're just—" I searched for the word. "Like we're just ATMs, machines that exist to give you what you want. That's not true. Name one time in the last year that you called me just to talk. Not to ask for money, not because it was a holiday, just to check in and see how I was doing." He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again, and came up empty. "That's what I thought," I said quietly. Colin's expression shifted into something I'd never seen before, something calculating and mean. "You know what, old man? Fine. Keep your money. But don't expect to hear from me anymore. Don't expect visits. Don't expect birthday cards or Christmas dinners. You want to know what it's like to not have a son? You're about to find out." He waited for me to break, to beg him not to leave, to choose him over the money. Instead, I smiled. Actually smiled. "Okay," I said. The confusion on his face was almost funny. "Okay?" "Yeah, if that's how you want to play it, okay. I've got $85,000 in my bank account and a wife who actually loves me. I think I'll manage." He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact second he realized his threat had no power, that maybe it never had, and I'd just been too blind to see it. "You're really going to choose money over your own son?" "You chose money over your own father," I said. "The second you found out that painting was valuable, you decided you deserved half. But when you thought it was worthless, you couldn't throw it away fast enough. So don't talk to me about choosing money, Colin. You wrote that playbook." He left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I sat there in the silence, my heart pounding, and waited for the guilt to come, for the fatherly instinct that said I should chase after him, apologize, make it right. It never came. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in years. Hannah called the next evening. I almost didn't answer, but Marie convinced me to give her a chance. "Mr. Whitmore?" Her voice was tight, controlled. "Do you have a few minutes?" "For you, Hannah?" "Sure." A pause. "I heard about the painting. Colin told me everything." "I'm sure he did. I wanted to understand your side, because what he's telling me doesn't quite add up." I explained it all. The Christmas gift, Colin's rejection, my research, the auction. She listened without interrupting, which was more courtesy than her husband had ever shown me. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "He really called it trash?" she finally asked. "His exact word. And now he thinks he deserves half the money. Seems that way." Another long pause. Then, so quietly, I almost missed it. "I married a fool." Despite everything, I laughed. "He's your fool, Hannah." "Mr. Whitmore, I need you to understand something. I'm not calling to ask for money. I'm calling because—" She took a shaky breath. "Because I think you did the right thing. Colin has spent our entire marriage coasting on other people's generosity. His parents, my parents, you. And every time someone bails him out, he learns that he doesn't have to try harder, that someone will always catch him. You're not like him," I said. "You never have been." I enabled him, though. I stood there on Christmas and didn't say anything when he disrespected you. I'm sorry for that. The apology caught me off guard. "Thank you." "He's not going to let this go," she warned. "You know that, right? He's already talking about lawyers, about contesting the will, about—" "About what?" Her voice dropped even lower. "About getting himself declared your medical power of attorney, claiming you're not mentally competent to handle your own finances." A chill ran through me. "He said that?" "Last night. He was ranting. Probably didn't mean it seriously, but Mr. Whitmore? I don't know anymore. I don't know what he's capable of when money's involved." After we hung up, I sat with Marie and told her everything. Her face went pale. "He'd really do that? Try to get you declared incompetent?" "I don't know. Maybe Hannah's right, and he was just venting. But I'm not taking chances." The next morning, I called a lawyer. By the end of the week, I had an appointment to update my will and establish clear medical directives. Marie would have power of attorney if anything happened to me. Colin would have nothing. It cost me $1,200 I hadn't planned to spend, but it was worth it for the peace of mind. 2 weeks passed. Colin didn't call, didn't visit. I found myself checking my phone obsessively at first, some masochistic part of me wanting to see his name pop up. But gradually, the urge faded. Marie and I started talking about the money, what we'd do with it. We paid off the car first. That felt good. Then we built up an emergency fund, something we'd never been able to do before. Put some aside for retirement. Started planning that trip to see my sister in Arizona. "We should do something fun," Marie said one night. "Something we'd never normally do." "Like what?" "I don't know. Take a cooking class, go to a fancy restaurant. You choose." I thought about it. "There's a vintage motorcycle I've had my eye on. Nothing fancy, just a refurbished Honda from the 70s. Runs great." Her eyes lit up. "You've been talking about getting a bike for 20 years. "Never had the money before." "So get the bike, Harold. You earned this." I bought the motorcycle the following weekend. It cost $6,000, and I didn't feel guilty for a single second. Dennis saw me rolling it into the building's garage and let out a low whistle. "Nice. When do I get a ride?" "Soon as I remember how to work the clutch." He laughed, but then his expression turned serious. "Your son stopped by yesterday, while you were out." My good mood evaporated. "What did he want?" "Wouldn't say. Just asked when you'd be back. I told him I didn't know. He hung around the lobby for about an hour, then left." "If he comes back, I'll call you first," Dennis promised. "That's what friends do." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Colin lurking in my building's lobby. What was he planning? Was Hannah right to worry? At 3 a.m, Marie found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. "Come back to bed," she said gently. "I can't stop thinking about him." "I know." She sat down across from me. "Harold, I need to say something, and I need you to really hear me. Are you listening?" I nodded. "You did nothing wrong. Not with the painting, not with the money, not with any of this. Colin is a grown man who made his own choices. You gave him a gift, and he rejected it. You didn't trick him. You didn't manipulate him. You just finally stopped letting him walk all over you." "Then why do I feel so terrible?" "Because you're a good father. Good fathers worry about their children, even when those children don't deserve it." She reached across the table and took my hands. "But worrying about him doesn't mean giving in to him. You can love your son and still have boundaries. Those things aren't mutually exclusive." I squeezed her hands. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You were just too stubborn to notice." We went back to bed, and I actually managed to sleep. The bomb dropped 3 days later. Colin's lawyer sent a letter. It arrived via certified mail, requiring my signature. The moment I saw the return address, Feldman and Associates, attorneys at law, my stomach dropped. Marie read it over my shoulder, her hand gripping my arm tighter with every paragraph. "They're demanding you give Colin half the proceeds from the painting," she said, her voice shaking. "They're claiming it was community family property and that you had no right to sell it without consulting him? That's ridiculous. Grandmother's will was crystal clear." "They know that. They're just trying to scare you." The letter concluded with a threat. "Settle voluntarily or prepare for litigation. We have evidence that Mr. Colin Whitmore had reasonable expectation of inheriting this item, and your actions constitute fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress." "Emotional distress," I said flatly. "He's suing me for emotional distress. What do? We call our lawyer." "Margaret Torres, not that name, can't use it. Margaret Reeves, our lawyer." She read the letter and actually laughed. "This is garbage," she said, tossing it onto her desk. "Complete garbage. They're hoping you'll panic and write them a check to make them go away. Don't." "So I just ignore it?" "Not exactly. I'll respond on your behalf. I'll remind them that you have documentation proving the painting was specifically left to you, that your son clearly rejected it as a gift, and that his claim has no legal standing. This will be over before it even reaches a courtroom." She was right. 2 weeks later, Feldman and Associates sent a second letter withdrawing their claim. Apparently, even Colin's lawyer couldn't pretend this case had legs. But something had changed. Some invisible line had been crossed. Colin wasn't just angry anymore. He was desperate, and desperate people did dangerous things. The phone calls started coming at odd hours, 3 a.m, 5, 7:30 on a Saturday. Always Colin, always the same speech. I was stealing from him. I was destroying our family. I was going to regret this. I blocked his number. He called from Hannah's phone. I blocked that too. He started showing up at the building again, sometimes waiting in the lobby for hours. "This is harassment," Dennis said. "You should call the police." "He's my son." "He's a stalker who happens to share your DNA. There's a difference." Maybe Dennis was right, but I couldn't quite bring myself to get the cops involved. Not yet. Then came the social media posts. I didn't even use Facebook much, but Marie's sister sent her a screenshot. Colin had posted a long rant about how I'd stolen his inheritance, how I was a selfish old man who cared more about money than family, how anyone with aging parents should watch out because this is what happens when elderly people get confused and make bad decisions. The comments were brutal. People I'd never met calling me senile, calling me greedy. Some of them actually sympathizing with Colin, saying their parents had done similar things. "He's telling everyone you're mentally incompetent," Marie said, her hands shaking as she held her phone. "He's literally starting a rumor campaign. Let him. Anyone who knows me knows better." But it got under my skin more than I wanted to admit. The idea that people thought I was losing my mind, that Colin was painting himself as the victim and me as some confused old fool. Hannah called again a few days later. "I'm leaving him," she said without preamble. I almost dropped the phone. "What?" "I can't do this anymore. The obsession with the money, the lawyer threats, the social media posts, the 3 a.m. phone calls. This isn't the man I married, or maybe it is, and I was just too blind to see it." "Hannah, I never wanted—" "This isn't your fault, Mr. Whitmore. This is his, and I need you to know something. He's planning to show up at your place tomorrow night. He told me he's going to have it out with you once and for all, whatever that means. Thanks for the warning. I'm serious. Be careful. I don't think he'd hurt you physically, but emotionally, he's going to try to destroy you." After she hung up, Marie looked at me with fear in her eyes. "Maybe we should go stay with my sister tomorrow, just until this blows over." "No," I said firmly. "I'm not running from my own son. If he wants to talk, we'll talk. But this time, we do it on my terms." I spent the next day preparing. Not physically. I wasn't expecting a fight, but mentally. I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd stay calm, how I wouldn't let him manipulate me into feeling guilty. At 8 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Colin standing there, Hannah half a step behind him, looking miserable. He'd lost weight. His eyes had dark circles under them. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," he said. "Then come in and talk." They entered slowly. Colin's eyes swept the apartment like he was cataloging everything, calculating its value. He saw the new TV we'd bought, probably making assumptions about how we'd paid for it. Marie appeared from the bedroom, arms crossed, positioning herself beside me, a united front. "Say what you came to say," I told Colin. He took a breath, let it out. When he spoke, his voice was measured, controlled, which somehow made it worse. "I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and I realize now that I was wrong to react the way I did on Christmas. I should have been more appreciative of the gift. I should have recognized its value, both sentimental and monetary." It sounded rehearsed, robotic. "However," he continued, "that doesn't change the fact that we're family, and families share. The money from that painting could have helped both of us, could have secured both of our futures. But instead, you chose to hoard it, to punish me for one mistake." "One mistake," I repeated quietly. "Yes. One bad reaction to one gift. And you've blown it completely out of proportion. You've turned this into some crusade against me, and I don't understand why. Don't you?" "No, Dad. I really don't." I looked at him, really looked at him, at my son, who I'd raised and loved and provided for, who I'd protected from consequences his entire life. And I realized he genuinely didn't understand. The years of taking me for granted, of treating me like an obligation instead of a person, of showing up only when he needed something, he didn't see any of it. In his mind, he was the victim here. That was the moment I finally let go. "Colin," I said slowly, "do you remember my 60th birthday?" He blinked, thrown by the change in subject. "What?" "My 60th birthday. 3 years ago. Do you remember it?" Yeah, sure." "No, you don't. Because you didn't show up. You called 2 hours after the party started and said you couldn't make it. Work emergency, you said. But Hannah's sister posted photos on Instagram that same night of you two at a baseball game." His face flushed. How about when I had my hernia surgery 2 years ago? I asked if you could drive me to the hospital. You said you had a work thing. Your mother had to take the bus with me because our car was broken down." "Dad, and last Thanksgiving. You promised you'd come. Your mother cooked for 2 days. We waited for 4 hours before you texted to say you decided to go to Hannah's parents' house instead. You didn't even call." Hannah made a small sound. She'd closed her eyes. "Those are just 3 examples, Colin. I could give you 50 more, 100. So when you stand there and tell me this is about one bad reaction to one gift, you're lying. To me, to Hannah, and most importantly to yourself." "That's not fair," he said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "What's not fair is that I spent 32 years excusing your behavior, telling myself you were busy, you were stressed, you were young and learning, But you're not young anymore. You're a grown man. And somehow, you still haven't learned the most basic thing, that people aren't just resources for you to extract value from. Marie's hand found mine again. Her presence gave me strength. The painting wasn't about money, I continued. Neither was the auction. This was about me finally seeing clearly. You didn't want that painting when you thought it was worthless. You didn't want a relationship with me when there wasn't something in it for you. But the second you smelled money, then suddenly I mattered. Suddenly we needed to talk about family and sharing and fairness. That's not true, Colin said, but even he didn't sound convinced. Yes, it is. And you know what? I'm done. I'm done being your backup plan. I'm done being the person you only call when you need something. I'm done pretending that this relationship is anything other than one-sided. So what are you saying? His voice rose. You're disowning me? Over money? No, Colin. You disowned me years ago. You just kept me around because I was useful. I'm just finally accepting it. That's not... He turned to Hannah. Tell him that's not true. Tell him I care about him. Hannah looked at her husband with something like pity. When was the last time you called him just to talk? When was the last time you asked how he was doing? When was the last time you thanked him for anything? You're supposed to be on my side. I was on your side, Hannah said quietly. For years I made excuses for you, to my family, to myself, to him, but I can't anymore. Not after watching what you've done these past few weeks. The lawyer, the social media posts, the 3 a.m. phone calls. She turned to me. I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitmore, for all of it. You don't have anything to apologize for, Hannah. Colin's face had gone white. You're both insane. I'm the victim here. He stole from me. I stole nothing, I said calmly. I kept what was legally and morally mine. What I should have kept a long time ago was my self-respect. You're a selfish old man who's going to be alone. The words should have stung, but they just felt hollow, predictable. Maybe, I said, but at least I won't leave this world having spent my whole life exploiting the people who loved me. He lunged forward. Not to hit me, I don't think, just to close the distance, to intimidate. But Marie stepped in front of me, and Dennis appeared in the doorway, apparently having heard the shouting through the thin walls. Everything okay here, Harold? Dennis asked, his voice carrying a warning. Colin looked around at all of us. At his wife who'd stopped defending him. At his father who'd stopped funding him. At witnesses who wouldn't let him escalate. This isn't over, he said. Yes, I replied. It is. He left. Hannah lingered for a moment. I really am leaving him, she said to me. I wanted you to know that. This isn't your fault. Take care of yourself, Hannah. After they were gone, I collapsed onto the couch. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. That was the hardest thing I've ever done, I told Marie. I know, but you did it, and you told him the truth. You think it'll make a difference? Probably not, but at least now you've said it. You don't have to carry it anymore. Dennis brought us tea. We sat in silence, processing everything. Eventually, he went back to his own apartment, and Marie and I went to bed. I expected nightmares. Instead, I slept better than I had in months. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Colin didn't call, didn't show up at the building. Hannah messaged once to let me know she'd moved into her sister's place and filed for separation. I sent her a text back wishing her well. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt ominous, like the eye of a hurricane. Marie noticed my tension. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop? Aren't you? Colin's done everything he can. The lawyer didn't work. The harassment didn't work. The confrontation didn't work. What else is there? She was right, logically, but some instinct in my gut said this wasn't finished. I focused on other things. The motorcycle needed maintenance, so I spent a Saturday afternoon in the garage with Dennis, who knew more about engines than I ever would. We got it running smooth, and I took it for a ride out to the coast. The wind and the road cleared my head. Marie and I planned our Arizona trip, looked at flights, hotels, everything we wanted to see. For the first time in our marriage, we didn't have to check our bank account before making plans. This is what life could have been, Marie said one evening, looking at travel brochures spread across the kitchen table, if we hadn't spent 30 years bailing him out. We can't think like that. Why not? It's true. Maybe it was. Maybe we'd missed out on decades of small freedoms because I couldn't say no to my son. But dwelling on it wouldn't change anything. Work was steady. The building had the usual issues, a broken water heater, some kid who spray-painted the back wall, a dispute between tenants about noise. Normal stuff. Good stuff, actually. Problems I could solve. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Whitmore? This is Janet Prescott from Mercy Hospital. My heart stopped. What happened? Your son was brought into the emergency room about an hour ago. He's stable now, but he's asking for you. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Marie came with me, neither of us speaking. 1,000 scenarios ran through my head. Car accident, heart attack, something worse. Janet met us in the waiting room. She was a tired-looking woman in scrubs with kind eyes. What happened? I asked. Your son overdosed, pills and alcohol. A neighbor heard him yelling and called 911. The paramedics got there in time to reverse it. The world tilted. Overdosed. We've stabilized him. He's awake and responsive. But Mr. Whitmore, this wasn't an accident. It took a moment for her meaning to sink in. You think he tried to. I think he's in crisis. He needs help, professional help. She led us to his room. Colin was lying in the hospital bed, pale and hollow-eyed, an IV in his arm. He looked fragile, young, like the boy I used to tuck into bed at night. Then he saw me and his expression hardened. You came, he said flatly. Of course I came. Surprised you bothered, after everything. I pulled a chair close to the bed. Marie stayed by the door, her arms crossed. Colin, what happened? What do you think happened? My life fell apart. Hannah left. Work found out about the social media posts and put me on probation. My friends stopped calling because apparently I'm the fool who tried to take from his own father. He laughed bitterly. And I realized that I have nothing. No money, no wife, no family, nothing. So you tried to end it? I tried to make the pain stop. His eyes met mine. And I wanted you to know what that felt like, to lose someone. The manipulation was so naked it almost made me angry. Almost. Colin, that's not... Save it, Dad. I know what you're going to say, that I need help, that this is a cry for attention, that I'm being dramatic. But here's the thing. I finally get it now. You were right, about everything. I was selfish, I was entitled, I treated you like garbage and expected you to keep giving me things anyway. I waited. This felt like a trap. But you know what else I realized? His voice dropped to a whisper. You're just as bad as me, because you had a chance to help your son, your only child, and you chose money instead. You could have shared that auction money. You could have been generous. But you wanted to punish me more than you wanted to save me. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me honestly, Dad. If you could go back, would you split that money with me? I looked at my son lying in a hospital bed because he'd swallowed a bottle of pills, and I realized the answer was still no. The money wasn't the point, I said carefully. It was never about the money. Then what was it about? Respect, boundaries, learning that actions have consequences. He laughed again, that same bitter sound. Well, I learned. Hope you're happy. I'm not happy. I'm here because you're my son, and I was worried about you. But Colin, you have to understand. You can't use this to control me. You can't threaten to hurt yourself every time you don't get what you want. I'm not threatening anything. I'm just telling you the truth. You chose money over me, and now you get to live with that choice. The nurse appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry. Visiting hours are over. He needs rest. I stood up slowly. We'll come back tomorrow. Don't bother, Colin said. I don't want to see you. In the car, Marie was crying silently. I focused on driving, trying to process everything. Was he right? I finally asked. Did I choose money over him? No, you chose self-respect over manipulation. There's a difference. He tried to end his life, Marie. He took pills after calling his neighbor from his balcony to make sure someone heard him yelling. The social worker told me while you were in the room. This was a gesture, Harold. A dramatic one and a dangerous one, but still a gesture. I wanted to believe her, but doubt crept in anyway. That night, I barely slept. I kept seeing Colin's face, hearing his words. You chose money over me. The hospital called 3 days later. Colin was being released to a supervised outpatient program. Did I want to be present for the discharge? I said yes. Marie came with me again. We found Colin in his room, packing a small bag. He looked better. More color in his face, less of that hollow desperation. Hey, I said. Hey. He didn't look at me. They're making me go to therapy. Group sessions 3 times a week. Individual counseling twice a week, like I'm some kind of invalid. It's good that you're getting help. Right. Help. He finally met my eyes. The therapist asked me about our relationship, about why I was so upset about the painting money. What did you tell her? The truth, that my dad would rather keep $85,000 than help his only son. And you know what she said? She said maybe you were right, that maybe I needed to learn independence. He said it like it was an insult, like the idea of being independent was absurd. She also said, Colin continued, that I should try to see things from your perspective. So I've been thinking. And I guess maybe I did take you for granted. Progress. Small, but there. I appreciate you saying that. But it doesn't change anything. You still kept all the money. You still cut me out of your will. Hannah still left me. So congratulations, Dad. You won. This wasn't about winning, Colin. Then what was it about? Because from where I'm sitting, you destroyed my life to teach me a lesson. I didn't destroy your life. You did. Every choice that led here was yours. His jaw clenched. Easy for you to say. You're not the one in therapy. You're not the one who has to rebuild everything from nothing. I've rebuilt plenty of things in my life. The difference is I didn't blame other people for my failures. The discharge nurse arrived with paperwork. Colin signed everything mechanically, not reading any of it. A social worker explained the outpatient program requirements. Colin nodded along, his expression blank. As we walked toward the exit, Colin stopped suddenly. I need money, he said. For rent, for therapy copays, for groceries. I'm broke, Dad. Completely broke. And I'm asking, not demanding, not expecting, just asking. Will you help me? Every parental instinct screamed yes. This was my son. He needed help. How could I say no? But then I saw it. The calculation in his eyes. The subtle manipulation. The expectation that guilt would override my boundaries. No, I said. His face twisted. Are you serious? You're 32 years old. You have a college degree and a job. You can figure this out. I could end up homeless. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spent years burning bridges. You're a terrible father, he spat. Maybe, but I'm done being your ATM. Colin stormed out of the hospital. The social worker looked at me sympathetically. That was hard, she said. It was necessary. For what it's worth, you made the right call. He needs to hit bottom before he can climb back up. And as long as someone keeps catching him, he never will. I hoped she was right. But it didn't make it hurt any less. Over the next month, I heard nothing from Colin. Hannah texted occasionally with updates. He'd moved into a smaller apartment, was actually attending his therapy sessions, had gotten serious about work. He's struggling, she wrote, but maybe that's what he needs. Marie and I took our trip to Arizona, spent 2 weeks with my sister, seeing the Grand Canyon and eating too much Mexican food. It was good to be away, to remember that life existed outside the drama. When we got back, there was a letter waiting, handwritten in Colin's messy scrawl. Dad, it read, my therapist says I need to take accountability, so here it is. I was wrong. About the painting, about the money, about everything. I treated you terribly for years and expected you to just take it. And when you finally stood up for yourself, I tried to make you the bad guy. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know. Colin. I read it 3 times. Marie read it over my shoulder. Do you think he means it? She asked. I don't know. Maybe. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a long time. Then I pulled out a piece of paper and wrote back, Colin, thank you for the letter. I hope therapy helps. I hope you build a good life. But I need you to understand. I'm not a bank. I'm not a safety net. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be because you actually want one, not because you need something. The door is open if you ever want to just talk. But nothing else has changed. Dad. I mailed it the next day. 2 weeks later, Colin called. Hi, Dad. Hi, Colin. I got your letter. Good. A long pause. I don't know how to do this, he finally said. How to just talk without needing something. Neither do I, but maybe we can figure it out. We talked for 20 minutes. It was awkward and stilted, but it was something. A beginning, maybe. When we hung up, Marie looked at me hopefully. Think he's changing? She asked. I think he's trying. Whether it sticks? I shrugged. Time will tell. 3 months went by. Colin called every couple of weeks. Short conversations, mostly surface-level stuff. How's work? How's the weather? He never asked for money, never brought up the painting. Hannah filed for divorce. Colin didn't fight it. He's different now, she told me during one of our occasional calls. Quieter, less angry. I don't know if it's real or just him hiding it better. Does it matter? To me, not anymore. I've moved on. But for you, maybe. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to believe Colin had genuinely changed. Part of me waited for the other shoe to drop. Marie was more optimistic. People can change, Harold. If he's really working on himself, then I'm happy for him. But that doesn't mean I'm opening my wallet again. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, maybe give him a chance. The chance came in November. Colin called and asked if he could come for Thanksgiving. Just dinner, he said quickly. Nothing else. No drama. I miss you guys. I talked it over with Marie. We decided to say yes. He showed up on time, actually early, brought a decent bottle of wine and a store-bought pie. Couldn't afford homemade, he said with a self-deprecating smile. But it's the thought that counts, right? Dinner was strange, civil. Colin asked about the motorcycle, about Marie's garden, about Dennis and the building. He talked about his job, about therapy, about the apartment he'd found. He didn't mention money, didn't mention the painting, didn't mention Hannah except in passing. It almost felt normal. After dinner, while Marie was in the kitchen, Colin cleared his throat. Dad, can we talk? Just for a minute? Here it comes, I thought. The real reason he came. Sure. I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened, and I realized something. You were trying to teach me a lesson, and I fought it every step of the way. But you were right. I was entitled. I did take you for granted. Okay. And I want you to know, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I am asking for a chance. To prove I'm different, to show you I can be the son you deserved all along. I studied his face. He looked sincere, but he'd looked sincere before. Actions speak louder than words, Colin. I know. That's why I'm not asking for anything. No money, no favors, nothing. Just time. Let me show you. Against my better judgment, I nodded. Okay. He visited twice more before Christmas. Short visits, just an hour or two. He helped me fix a broken pipe in the building. Took Marie out for coffee while I was at work. Small gestures, but consistent. He really does seem different, Marie said after his third visit. Maybe. For Christmas, he gave us a framed photo of the three of us from years ago, before everything went wrong. The frame was cheap, but the gesture felt genuine. I gave him a new book I thought he'd like. Nothing expensive. Nothing he could pawn. We had a nice day, no arguments, no tension, just a quiet family Christmas. I almost let myself hope. Then January came, and with it, the real test. Colin called on a Tuesday evening. Dad, I need to talk to you about something important. My guard went up immediately. What? Can I come over? It's better in person. He showed up an hour later. Marie was visiting her sister, so it was just us. Colin sat on the couch, fidgeting with his hands. So here's the thing, he started. I've been doing really well at work. My supervisor actually promoted me. Better territory, bigger commissions, the whole thing. That's great, Colin. Yeah, but there's a catch. The new territory requires more travel. And my car, it's not going to make it. The transmission is going, the engine's got issues, and every mechanic I've talked to says it's going to be at least $4,000 to fix. Maybe more. There it was. The ask. And you want me to pay for it? No. He said it so quickly, so emphatically, that I almost believed him. No, Dad, I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for advice. Should I try to fix the car? Should I get a loan for a new one? Should I look for a cheaper territory? I don't know what to do, and you've always been good with practical stuff like this. I stared at him. You're really not asking for money? I'm really not. I promised I wouldn't, and I meant it. We talked for an hour. I laid out his options, helped him crunch numbers, gave him the names of a few reliable mechanics. He took notes, asked good questions, seemed genuinely grateful for the advice. When he left, I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe he really has changed, I told Marie later. Maybe. 2 weeks later, Colin called again. Hey, Dad, remember that mechanic you recommended? Got the car fixed for $3,200? Found the money by picking up extra shifts and selling some stuff I didn't need. Wanted to thank you for the advice. That's great, Colin. Yeah, feels good to handle something myself for once. Another month passed. Colin kept calling regularly, kept visiting occasionally, never asked for money, never even hinted at it. I started to relax, started to believe maybe this was real. Then came the night everything changed. It was late March, almost a year since the Christmas painting incident. Colin called and asked if he could come over to talk about something serious. What is it? I'd rather tell you in person. Is tomorrow evening okay? Marie was out again, some book club thing. Colin showed up at 7, and this time Hannah was with him. They looked nervous, formal. We need to talk, Colin said. Okay. They sat down. Hannah wouldn't meet my eyes. So here's the situation, Colin started. The therapy has been helping a lot. And one of the things I've been working on is taking responsibility for my past mistakes, making amends where I can. That's good. Yeah, and there's something I need to tell you, something I should have been honest about from the beginning. My stomach tightened. What? He took a deep breath. When I said the painting was trash last Christmas, I knew what it was worth. The words hung in the air like poison. What? I recognized the signature. Not immediately, but when I got home that night, I looked it up. Hannah and I both did. We found the same auction records you found. We knew it could sell for 6 figures. Hannah spoke quietly. We talked about it, about whether to tell you. And we decided not to, Colin continued, because we figured you didn't know, and if we just waited, eventually you'd give it to us anyway, or you'd pass away and I'd inherit it. Either way, we'd get the money eventually. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was hearing. But then you sold it, Colin said, and I panicked, because I'd been counting on that money. We both had. We'd already started planning what we'd do with it, and when you kept it all for yourself, I felt robbed, even though technically it was yours. Why are you telling me this now? My voice sounded distant, foreign. Because my therapist said I needed to. To really heal, I had to come clean about everything. No more lies, no more manipulation. You manipulated me on purpose. Yes. For an entire year. Yes. Even the therapy, even the visits, even the car thing. All of it was no. Colin leaned forward. No, Dad, that's the thing. The therapy is real. The changes are real. I'm not the same person I was last Christmas. But I needed to tell you the truth about how it started. About what I did. Get out. Dad, get out of my house. Please, just listen. Get out. Colin and Hannah left. The door closed. I stood in my living room, shaking with a rage so pure it scared me. He knew. The whole time he knew. The dismissive comment about it being trash, the act of rejecting it, all calculated. All designed to make me feel like it was worthless so he could claim it later. Every call over the past months, every visit, every moment I'd started to hope he'd changed, all of it tainted now, poisoned by this confession. Marie came home an hour later and found me sitting in the dark. Harold, what happened? I told her everything. She listened in silence, her face growing harder with every sentence. That manipulative little... She stopped herself, took a breath. What are you going to do? I don't know. But that was a lie. I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Margaret Reeves. We met that afternoon. I want to completely cut Colin out of everything, I said. Will, insurance policies, medical directives, everything. I want to make sure that when I go, he gets absolutely nothing. Your will already excludes him. Then make it more explicit. I want language that makes it impossible for him to contest. I want it ironclad. She made notes. Anything else? The money from the painting, the $85,000. I want to donate it, all of it, to charity, something he'd hate. Harold, think about this. That's your retirement money, your emergency fund. I don't care. He spent a year manipulating me, thinking he'd eventually get his hands on it anyway. I want him to know it's gone, that he'll never see a penny of it. Which charity? I thought about it. The Children's Hospital, the one where he was born, put it in Marie's name, not mine. I want zero connection to it. She drew up the papers. I signed them that same day. That night, Colin called. I let it go to voicemail. He called 6 more times, left increasingly desperate messages. Dad, please, we need to talk. I know you're angry, but delete. I'm sorry, okay? I'm so sorry. I was trying to be honest. Delete. Please don't shut me out. Please. I can't lose you again. Delete. 3 days later, he showed up at the building. Dennis called me. Colin's in the lobby. Wants to see you. Tell him I'm not here. Harold. Tell him I'm not here, and I don't want to see him. Ever. Silence. Then, you got it, buddy. Colin came back the next day, and the day after. Each time, Dennis turned him away. On the 4th day, Hannah called. Mr. Whitmore, please. Just talk to him once. Let him explain. He already explained. He knew what the painting was worth, and he lied about it. He manipulated me for a year. What else is there to say? He was trying to come clean. To take responsibility. Isn't that what you wanted? What I wanted was a son who wasn't a liar. Guess I don't get that. You're being cruel. No, Hannah. I'm being done. I hung up. The calls continued. The visits continued. I ignored all of it. Marie watched me with worried eyes. "You're spiraling, Harold." "I'm protecting myself." "You're shutting down. There's a difference." He lied to me for months. He knew about the painting and he let me give it to him anyway, planning to take it from me eventually. How am I supposed to forgive that? I'm not saying forgive him. I'm saying don't let him destroy you in the process of punishing him. But I was beyond listening. The rage had settled into something cold and permanent. A decision made and locked in place. 2 weeks after Colin's confession, I was doing maintenance work in the building when Dennis found me. "Colin's here again," he said, "but this time he's got a woman with him. Says she's his therapist and they need to talk to you. It's important." Part of me wanted to refuse, but curiosity won out. They were waiting in the lobby. Colin looked terrible, gaunt, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. The woman with him was in her 50s, professional but warm. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm Dr. Patterson, Colin's therapist. Thank you for seeing us. I'm giving you 5 minutes. That's all we need." She gestured to a quiet corner. We sat. Colin stared at his hands. "Mr. Whitmore, I want you to understand something. When Colin came clean to you about knowing the painting's value, he was following a therapeutic directive. We'd been working on radical honesty, the idea that he needed to stop hiding things, even uncomfortable truths. So, this is your fault? No. The lie was his fault, but the confession was an attempt at growth. Unfortunately, timing and delivery could have been better. You think? I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I wanted you to understand the context. Colin wasn't trying to hurt you with that confession. He was trying to finally be honest. He was honest about being a liar. Forgive me if I don't throw him a party." Colin finally looked up. His eyes were red. "Dad, I know I screwed up. Again, I keep screwing up. But I need you to understand. The person who lied about the painting last Christmas, that's not who I am anymore. I've changed, and I'm going to keep changing. With or without you." "Then do it without me." "No." His voice was firm, steady. "No, I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep showing up. Because that's what people who care about each other do. They don't run away when things get hard." I ran. My voice rose. "I spent 32 years standing still while you took everything from me. Don't you dare accuse me of running." "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. That wasn't fair." The apology deflated my anger. Just slightly. Dr. Patterson stood. "I think that's enough for today. Mr. Whitmore, I hope you'll consider giving Colin another chance. Not now, maybe not for a while, but someday." They left. I sat there in the lobby, shaking. Dennis sat down next to me. "You okay?" "I don't know. For what it's worth, kid seems genuine." "How can you tell?" "Can't. Yeah, but neither can you. So maybe the question is, do you want to be right, or do you want your son back?" I didn't have an answer. That night, I told Marie everything. She listened quietly, then took my hand. "Do you remember what you said when Colin was born?" she asked. "No." "You said, 'I'm going to be the dad I never had. I'm going to love him no matter what.' Do you remember that?" Vaguely. It felt like a lifetime ago. "He's made it really hard to love him," I said. "I know, but love isn't supposed to be easy. That's why it matters." I thought about that for a long time, about love and boundaries, about forgiveness and self-respect, about whether the two could coexist. I still didn't have an answer, but maybe that was okay. The next morning, I made a decision, not about Colin, about myself. I called the charity where I donated the painting money, asked if the donation was reversible. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore," the woman said. "Once a donation is processed, it's final." "Good," I said. "I just wanted to make sure." Because that money represented something bigger than dollars. It represented my line in the sand, my statement that I wasn't a resource to be exploited.